Thanks, mate. Hello, my name's Al Crisci, and I'm the founder of the Clink Charity and the Clink Prison Restaurants. Now, these are high-quality restaurants, and the reason they're created is to give prisoners a really good level of training so they can become professional chefs and professional waiters and get a job when they're released. Why did I want to do this? Simple. All I wanted to do was reduce reoffending. Why food, you may ask? Well, I'm going to take you back now to my childhood, where my mum and dad used to take me on family holidays to the south of Italy. And apart from just playing football, which we did a lot, the young kids in the village would take me foraging. At least that's what they told me it was. They'd take me onto land and we'd go and look for fruit trees. When we found them, we'd fill our pockets and eat as many as we can. I quickly realized that it wasn't foraging because half the time we'd be chased down the street with everything falling out of our pockets. This instilled in me. I've got to tell you one other thing. One day, they took me to a fig tree and literally spent half the day eating as many figs as we could until we burst. And to them, this was great, you know. It wasn't to my mum the next day, because you can imagine what the repercussions were of eating all these figs. But these people in this area, they only ate what was in season. Nothing was imported. They looked forward to fresh fruits. They enjoyed them when they were ripe. The next month, they'd move on to something else. The winter, it would be nuts, chestnuts. So that instilled something in me, and something that I still hold dear today. I lived in Epsom, Surrey, and I was brought up there, and there was a large Italian community of immigrants there. And they were really strict Catholics. And most of my friends were the same as me. Their parents were immigrants, and they were really strict Catholics. Two of my friends, Joe and Nick, would be dragged kicking and screaming with me to church, where we'd normally be naughty and get told off, and our parents would be told off by the priest. That was a bad memory, I suppose, because I didn't want to go to church. But we had really good memories. They were really outgoing, fun-loving, cheeky kids, and I suppose I was. Unfortunately, though, Joe and Nick's mum and dad split up, and Dad left to go to Italy, and they were being brought up by Mum for a couple of years. And then Mum left. And she left Joe and Nick in the house. Joe was in his late teens, 18, 19. Nick was still at school. And you can imagine what happened. That house, they lived in a lovely house in the middle of Epsom, alone. It was a party house. There was drink, there was drugs. You name it, it happened. And everyone used to go there. Unfortunately, though, one thing led to another, and Nick and Joe became addicted to heroin. As a result of that, they started committing crimes to feed their habit, and ended up in prison. Joe died in prison. He choked on his own vomit through a drug overdose. And a couple of years later, Nick, who couldn't cope, his younger brother, he committed suicide. And you can imagine that was a tough time. Anyway, in the late 80s, I wanted to go into business, and I opened a wine bar and coffee shop in South London. And my mum and dad gave me their life savings to set me up in business. And it was going well. I just had a daughter, I had a young family. But then I lost it all. I went bankrupt. Don't know who remembers Black Wednesday. I lost every penny. And you can imagine I wasn't happy. And my mum and dad, you know, I lost their life savings. They weren't happy at all. In fact, they still remind me to this day. So I had to find another job. So I saw a job advertised, 4 days on, 4 days off, Her Majesty's Prison Service. And I thought, it's near my house, I'm going to apply for this job. The other 4 days I can work somewhere else and supplement my income. So I took it. In 1999, I became the manager of the prison catering, the catering manager, and I introduced prisoner training. And I set it up as a college. Prisoners were getting trained how to cook and getting a qualification and getting released. Then I noticed they were coming back. And I asked them, why are you coming back? You got a qualification. We worked so hard. You worked so hard. And they said, Gov, no one will give me a job. No one will give me a job because as soon as I say I've been in prison, that's it. I don't even get an interview, you know. And I thought, well, this is a waste of their time, studying and getting the qualification, and a waste of my time. So how am I going to address it? So I created something called the Gourmet Lunch for Jobs, and I invited managers in, senior managers, people who could make a decision from the hospitality industry to have a 4-course lunch cooked and served by the prisoners. And they'd come in, and the prisoners would cook. It worked. All of a sudden, these directors and CEOs were giving their cards to the prisoners saying, when you get out, give me a call. I'll give you a job. And I thought, oh, I've got to add another little bit in here. In 2005, I was nominated for an award through the BBC Food and Farming Awards, which I won. Unfortunately, it has a bit of an unfortunate title, and it was the Best Dinner Lady Man. So I've got a certificate saying, Al Crisci, Best Dinner Lady Man. The point I want to make, though, is that I had to do an acceptance speech, and while I was doing it, I blurted out I was going to open a restaurant called the Clink in a prison to thousands of people, or millions. I don't know how many listen to the food program, but a lot of people. So there was no going back. In 2007, the prison I worked in was expanding. They had to accommodate another 400 prisoners, and I was asked, what do you need in your kitchen to accommodate this? And they thought I was going to say, I want a bigger kitchen. And I thought, no, I want to get this gourmet lunch for jobs going. So I said, I want a restaurant in a prison, and this gourmet lunch idea, I want to take it to the next level. The governor at the time, Peter Dawson, he was a great man, he is a great man, really forward-thinking. He consulted Her Majesty's Prison Service. It worked again. They said yes. They let me go with it, so I got a design done. Peter Dawson said, Al, I don't want to see it until it's finished, because I'm already having, nightmares. It was a first for the prison to, open a restaurant inside a Category B prison. So I called him one day, said, Governor, it's finished, do you want to come and have a look? So he came down, he opened the door, and he just opened his mouth, said, wow, there was tears rolling down his face. I don't know if they were through happiness or fear. I suspect shock. But he was pleased. And the whole idea behind the Clink concept was to train prisoners to a high standard. So everything had to be seasonal. They learnt about the seasons. Everything had to be homemade. Well, I say had to be, is homemade. Pasta made fresh, ice cream fresh, stock sauces, butchering meat, whole fish, filleting. Classic training. I wanted them to get a really high level, because when they went out and got a job, they already had enough obstacles. But if a Clink qualification meant something, meant a sign of quality, it was going to help them. The other thing about the Clink is all the furniture was made by prisoners. The glass walls are etched with prisoner poetry. The artwork on the walls is prisoner art. So it showcases lots of other things, not just cooking and serving, but shows you the skills that prisoners have and the capabilities that they've got. In 2009, I opened the Clink, the first Clink at Highdown Prison, serving the public, changing the public's perception of prisoners, inviting employers in, just like I did with the lunch, housing, people who could get them housing. They need somewhere to live if they get released. People who could help with drug rehabilitation, alcohol rehabilitation. They're the kind of people that come into the Clink, because they need support when they get out as well, not just when they get in. And as a result of, I realized that, we started supporting them before they were released, not just training them, and after release. So the Clink supports its graduates after release. We have our own support workers. They work with them for 6 months minimum, longer if necessary, take them to the job interview, make sure, liaise with the employer. It's just someone to lean on. Not everybody's got somebody to go out to. A lot of these people have nobody. Since Highdown, we've opened a Clink in Cardiff, Brixton, HMP style with women, a gardening project in Surrey, in Send Women's Prison, where they learn how to grow food and get a qualification. That food is then transported to our Highdown and Brixton restaurants for us to use, and also something called Clink Events, which is where we do events in and around London, and we work with ex-offenders and homeless young people and train them how to serve at an event. We're training, I think, 130 prisoners now every day, the Clink, around the country. So there's 130 prisoners a day that benefit, and that's probably, you can double that in a year. Does the Clink work? Our last reoffending rates that were audited independently were in 2013, 12.5% was our reoffending rate, opposed to a national average of about 50 and more after 1 year. So yes, I do think it works. I think society should be trying to keep people out of prison and not building more prisons. Let's just say one day you make a mistake and you end up in prison, and then when you get out, nobody will help you, nobody will give you a job. What would you do?
I was caught with an ounce of cocaine and 3 ounces of skunk, cannabis. It was hard enough for me to try and get a job when I was out anyway, because I didn't have any qualifications, but now I've got a criminal record. It's going to be even more harder.
Have a seat, Robbie. Sit down, leave that. Right, you want to work in the Clink?
Yes, please.
Why do you want to work in the Clink?
I heard it's quite a good job to have here.
Right. Why do you want to work in the Clink?
Because I'd like to get some restaurant experience and maybe some qualifications so I can get a job working in a restaurant on the out.
Okay. You'll be working in a team, so everybody works together.
Sure.
Yeah, you're all prisoners, but when you're in here, you're a waiter.
Okay.
There's zero tolerance. Do you know what that means? Yeah. That means what I say goes. End of story. Are you nervous?
A little bit, but who isn't on their first day?
You all right? Have a seat, Dominic. Come in. You all right?
Yeah.
You a bit nervous? You're not scared of Al, are you?
Nah.
Why do you want to work in the Clink?
I would like to become a professional chef
How long have you wanted to do that for?
all my life.
Really?
Yeah. I enjoy cooking.
You think you're good at cooking?
Yeah.
Okay, listen what I'm going to tell you. If you do what I say and you behave yourself, we'll train you, okay? And then we'll help you get a job. What would you do when you're released? You got somewhere to go? You got a job to go to? You got someone to go and live with? What have you got?
Social services will get me somewhere to live, but I don't know about a job. Yeah.
What about family?
No, I don't live with my family.
So you've got no family, nowhere to live, and no qualifications. Okay. In order to tackle this, I think we need to have open minds and we need to open our hearts. We need to think out of the box. We need to treat rehabilitation of offenders differently to how we have been. Prisoners need to go out with a professional qualification. They need to go out with support. Everyone deserves a second chance. If it was your son, your daughter, your mum, your dad, your wife, your husband, how would you want them treated in prison? Would you want them to come out a better person with a chance to succeed in life? I know I would. Thank you.
Good man, Al.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Al Crisci.